African American Legend series highlights the accomplishments of blacks in areas as varied as politics, sports, aviation, business, literature, and international affairs. We will explore how African Americans who have been previously excluded because of segregation, racism, and lack of opportunity have succeeded. I'm your host, Dr. Roscoe C. Brown, Jr., and with us today is Wendy Hilliard from New York City Olympics 2012, the Wendy Hilliard Foundation, and all of the other good things that go along with sports in our society. Glad to have you with us today, Wendy.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, tell us about you. How did you get into gymnastics? What did it lead you into? And then finally, how did you get into 2012 Olympics?
Well,
I don't think you'll be performing that year.
Not in 2012. I'll have some gymnasts there, but I won't be performing. It's kind of a long story, but actually I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and I started in what they call artistic gymnastics, which is the bars and the beams and such. And a Russian coach happened to be in Detroit, and she was a rhythmic gymnastics expert, and we still argue about this because it's been so long. She says that I begged her to teach me rhythmic gymnastics, and I said she recruited me because I was so talented, and I didn't know rhythmic gymnastics. At any rate, we started training very hard, and I made the national team. I was the first African-American to compete for the U.S., and I trained very hard, spent a lot of time training in Europe, and I learned Russian and competed in 3 world championships in the national team for about 10 years. And then I...
well, let me interrupt. You said you trained very hard. This wasn't free.
I know.
So you had to get the resources, your family had to get the resources. How did you do that?
Any way I could. It was very difficult. I mean, the sport of rhythmic gymnastics or gymnastics in general requires a lot of traveling and training and coaches' fees. It's a very intensive sport, and so my parents, of course, were very supportive at the beginning. Unfortunately, it's not a collegiate sport, so I couldn't get a college scholarship, so I had to work and train. When I came to New York, I used to teach gymnastics and then get on the train and go out to train with my coach. It was very difficult. Fortunately, near the end of my career, the Women's Sports Foundation gave me a grant to help me keep competing, and that's how I kind of came with the Women's Sports Foundation. They supported me, and I gave back and eventually became the president. But it was really a hard work to get it, to make sure that I wanted to stay out there. There are times when I wasn't greeted on the national team. There was actually one incident where they were picking the national team to go to the World Championships, and they had a group routine where they have 6 girls compete, and the idea is everyone to be synchronized and look the same. Well, I didn't look the same like everyone else, and this year at the Olympic Training Center, when they announced the team, they didn't announce my name, and I was devastated. I had just been training in Bulgaria, and I'd been on the national team and the world team, and I had to write USA Gymnastics. I wrote them a letter right then and there, and I said, you can't, you know, get me off the team because I look different because of my color. And they changed it. And I went on to the World Championships, and it's a funny story because Cuba was the only team in the world that had black gymnasts because of their Russian influence. Their team had 5 black girls and 1 white girl, just the opposite of the U.S. team. So I think, you know, it was a great story, but it really taught me that I had to fight for what I wanted to do to stay in the team.
You have to fight for what you want. African Americans have always had to fight for what they want. But it's interesting, you know, the Olympic circles, the 5 circles of 5 continents, are in all different colors.
Right.
And for one country to say if someone of a different color can't participate is a little silly. But the world has come a long way. It's got a long way to go. It's come a long way.
It does. It depends on the different sports and where you are in your sport. But it taught me a really good lesson. It really kind of took my path to become more of an advocate for athletes and for women's sports and things like that. But it was a very good lesson. You just have to keep working hard and plugging through.
Now, on the international circuit, how did you find people from various parts of the world? The Russians, you already pointed up, were very supportive, I assume. But what about some of the Chinese, the Japanese? What about some of the people from South America, even South Africa?
Right.
How did they interact with you?
I had a great time competing internationally. As I told you, I learned to speak Russian from my coach, and I studied Russian in school. So when I would go with the American team, I was like the translator, and I could speak with all the Eastern European countries who were the best in the world at that time. And the countries from around the world, I traveled in China. We did the first rhythmic meet in China, and I went there to Beijing, and I was like the most popular person in China because the only black person on the TV that day, and everyone knew who I was. But everyone appreciated the style of gymnastics I was doing, even though my coach was Russian. She let me do more modern music, more soul music. I'm from Motown, I'm from Detroit, and so I think in Europe they appreciated my style of gymnastics, so it's kind of ironic that I usually did much better in competition overseas than I did in the States oftentimes.
That is interesting. Now, how did you get into the Olympic 2012 committee. You are running the marketing for that. It's a long shot for Olympics to come to New York, and we'll see later in the program a little video that's been produced to help move the Olympics along. And Dan Doctorow, who's now the Deputy Mayor of Economic Development, really was the leader behind this, and you the marketer. Now, do a little marketing.
A little marketing. Well, I actually am the Managing Director of Sports, so I really handle the sports end. And I wouldn't call us a long shot. I think New York has a very good chance of bringing the Olympic Games here. I signed on with the NYC 2012, working with, I still had my foundation going on, but I had coached an Olympian, and because of my experience, I was on the Executive Committee of USA Gymnastics. I used to be on the Athletes Council of the Olympic Committee, so I had a great history of knowing how the Olympic movement ran and going to 5 Olympics and such. So Jay Kriegel, who's our executive director, contacted me, and we had a lot of talks back and forth, and it's really been a great match because my history with the athletes, my history with sports, and my love of New York City. We have a wonderful plan. It's a very challenging project, there's no doubt about that, and even recently in the last 6 or 7 months we really see that New Yorkers have embraced it even more, given it more of a reason to see the Olympics. The Olympics has never been in the greatest city in the world, which is, some people just assume they've been here before, but they haven't been in New York. New York is the world's second home. We have more ethnic groups, more languages spoken here than anywhere else in the world, and so it's a natural fit for the Olympic Games, and we have a wonderful plan that'll make it easy. The transportation will be great for the athletes and comfortable for the spectators.
They're going to use the subway, right?
That's right. You get on the subway like we always do when we go to work.
Subway and ferries.
Exactly. Yeah, we have a great plan. We call it the Olympic X. Alex Garvin is our planner for the Olympic movement, and it's a really wonderful plan that makes it very easy using the ferries and using designated train lines for the athletes to get around, and everyone else can do the subways like we always do.
Well, I've been to the Olympics in Montreal and Atlanta, and both of those depended a lot on mass transit moving back and forth along the MART or whatever they call the transportation system. And New York City, of course, has the best transportation system in the world.
Right.
Are you going to have special trains for the Olympians, or are they going to go and ride stripe panels on the number 7 train like the rest of us?
The Olympians would have to get on the number 7. Their fans will get on the number 7. But the Olympians will have a designated train line that goes to the Olympic Village, which is really based at the heart of the X, which will be in Queens West, across from the United Nations, which is an ideal place for the Olympians to live. And they have access, easy access to go from out in Flushing Meadows all the way out to the Meadowlands, easy train ride designated for them and the press and for the Olympic family, or they can take a very comfortable ferry ride to go north or south along the Olympic X axis. So.
Well, you mentioned the Olympic Village like it exists.
Well, it exists in wonderful plans that we have. It's not here yet, but it's really one of the wonderful projects. You know how housing in New York is, and the fact that we have Olympic Village and high-rises makes sense for both the Olympians, the Paralympians, which will take place after the Olympic Games, and also for New Yorkers that will have wonderful housing after the Games.
Well, this is going to be on the west side of Queens, where some of the factories are now, or abandoned factories.
Right.
And you're going to level that and then build this high-rise village.
Well, it's a village.
Which will look right into Manhattan.
Exactly. It'll have beautiful views. There are many ways that to have it in Queens West, also because it's on the water, will help with security issues, besides having beautiful views of the city, but also being able to house the athletes very comfortably and to make it very easy for them to get around. It's a perfect location. And then there'll be apartments that people are going to want to have after the Olympic Games and snap them up really quick.
That's where we're going to pay for the village now, when they sell their apartments.
Well, the financing of the whole Games, you have to understand, we have a really wonderful board of directors, and we've done great planning on this. The financing, a lot of New Yorkers are worried about that, but the financing of the Games and the venues that we're going to be building and things like that will all be financed through the Olympic financing, through the monies that you get from television, ticket sales. I mean, we have a really wonderful plan to put it all together, so I want New Yorkers to rest at ease that the venues that we're going to have, the legacy, which we want to leave, which is really important, is that young people will be able to do sports that they never thought they could do before in New York City. We have a great history, and it's time for us to get our Olympians back on track again.
One thing that you produced this booklet, Olympians and Paralympians from New York City. And this has all kind of folks who participate in all kind of sports from New York City, many of whom I know, and I know you know most of them. But it was very interesting that there is this relationship with the Olympics in New York City. I think they had the 1964 Olympic trials for track and field here. And I think maybe they did basketball out of the Meadowlands.
Well, they've had many Olympic trials. Jesse Owens actually ran in Randall's Islands. Donna DeVerona tried out for the Olympic teams out in Queens. Leslie Bush. We have over 450 Paralympians and Olympians that are either from New York or the surrounding areas, and it's amazing. Of course, Bob Beeman, who you've talked to, Bonnie Blair, Debbie Thomas. We have Winter Olympians, Summer Olympians, Paralympians from different sports. We have them going back to the 1924 Olympics as soon as, and also Salt Lake 2002. Sarah Hughes is one of our Circle of Olympians, and it's really wonderful. They're the base of our bid, because when we talk about doing the Olympics, it's all about the Olympians. I work with Erica Nelson at NYC 2012 as a sports manager, and we really do a great job of keeping them together, keeping them, letting them have the opportunity to tell us what they think about having the Olympics in New York, and they're a great partner for our bid.
Now, who's your competition? Who's our competition?
Well, right now we're in the United States competition, so there are 3 other cities: Washington, D.C., San Francisco, and Houston. And then November 3rd, the United States Olympic Committee will designate who will be the U.S. representative for the Olympic bid.
Now, assuming we win that, then where's our foreign competition?
Well, the foreign, it's a long process, and actually that won't be decided in 2005. But there have been certain cities that are coming up. There's a possibility that Moscow is going to get into the competition again. London, England may come through. There's going to definitely be a city from Italy and from Spain. South Africa's possibly thinking about it, maybe South America, but we really think a lot of the competition is going to be from Europe. And a lot of this, the whole Olympic bid, depends on many things: who's going to get the Winter Games of 2010, whether Toronto will be in the running again. So it's a very calculated and interesting campaign, but I think New York has a great chance.
Let's see, the 2004 Olympics are in Beijing.
Well, 2004 is in Athens.
In Athens, pardon me. That's the
Athens, Greece.
Celebration of the beginning of the Olympics. Actually, the Olympics began in 1896.
Right.
No, they began in 772
Yes,
BC.
the modern Olympic Games.
Right.
The modern Olympic Games are 1886, and so we celebrated their centennial in Atlanta. But the home of the Olympics is in Athens, Greece, and that's where the 2004.
Then for the first time we're going. We've been to Japan.
Right.
But we're going to China,
China
the
for
most
the first
populous
time.
nation in the world.
Exactly.
In 2008, and then we'll come to New York in 2012.
I think it's a great plan. I think it's time for it to come back to America.
Well, if enthusiasm could get the bid, you certainly have gotten that. Now let's talk about the Olympics themselves. The Olympics movement has been in trouble. They've been criticized for including professional athletes. They've been criticized for some of the international debates about judging and fairness and the commercialism. How does that really resolve with this dream of the Olympics of amateur athletes coming from out of the woods of Greece and all around the Peloponnesian Peninsula to compete to see who's the strongest and the fastest, you know,
Right.
Was it stronger, faster,
Swifter,
higher,
strong,
swifter,
higher.
yeah.
Well, you know, that still happens in the Olympic Games, and a lot of the media attention, of course, surrounds the different scandals you have. I come from a judge sport, so I totally understand what it is when you have judging controversy and things like that, which will almost always be a part of the Olympic Games and part of sport. There are a lot of issues that they're trying to handle. The drug issue is, of course, very, very strong, and they have to try and get a handle on that. But the essence, when you go to the Olympic Games, there's always a story. There's always an athlete that comes out that isn't making a lot of money. Most of the athletes don't make a lot of money.
Yeah,
Most of the
we
different
know,
sports.
right.
They don't make money, and the Olympics Games is the time for them to shine. You always have great stories, like out of Salt Lake City, Vanetta Flowers, who came through to be the first black to win a gold medal. Derek Parra, who's a speed skater, and you just have different stories. So even though there's going to be scandal because it's a really high-profile event and there's lots of money involved, the athletes are really what makes it special, and there are always going to be sports where the stories will come through.
Well, I think the camaraderie among the athletes is greater than that among the spectators.
Oh, definitely.
Because depending on where you go, the spectators are mostly from the area right close to them and are somewhat nationalistic in terms of their support for their own athletes.
Right.
And unfortunately, in American television, they focus on the American athletes in high-profile sports and not some of the other international athletes who are in sports that are much more interesting. And when was the last time hurling? I think hurling now.
Oh, curling, right from
yeah,
the well, you know, there's always a story that comes through. That's not a great American sport. Let's not talk to them in Wisconsin, but it's a great Canadian sport. But that's the thing about the Olympic Games, depending on where it is and things like that. But that's what's great about having the Olympics in New York. Even if everyone was from New York City that was a spectator, they'd have ties to different countries from around the world. So you'd have the Italian group, and you'd have a Brazilian group, and people from Ghana and different countries in Africa and China. That's really exciting about the possibility of coming to New York. But actually, the spectators do come from around the world, and it's a really great party. But for the athletes, there are two things they have to do. They have to do their job, which is why they get there. But it's a really great brotherhood and sisterhood of athletes that come together with one goal, and it's great to share.
Well, I've met many Olympians who've talked about that particular experience. I've met many people who tried and just missed it. And their feeling was that, you know, it was an experience to be involved in trying to do it.
Right.
In some cases, the trials were their Olympics.
Exactly.
And they were out there trying, etc., in order to do that. Well, let's talk about what you have done with your foundation. You have the Wendy Hilliard Foundation, which raises millions of dollars and does
Not yet, but we will.
which does some very interesting things with young inner city and African American and other individuals who are interested in gymnastics. So tell us how the foundation started, what its goals and objectives are, and what kind of programs you have.
Well, we started back in 1996, and actually it was kind of a combination. I had coached an Olympic athlete that went to the 96 Games, Alian Backrow from New York, and it gave me the inspiration that it's one thing that I could coach maybe at the most 10 or 12 girls to do rhythmic gymnastics, or I could really try and help to grow the sport and give other African Americans the opportunity to do rhythmic gymnastics. And so I started back, and it was just an idea, and we had some funding from the city, Department of Youth and Community Development, which is one of our funders now, the Olympic Committee came through to give us support. And over the years, we've been able to raise money and offer free gymnastics classes to kids. We have a gymnastics team. We have a competitive team of girls. Our current team is named Team 2012, so we're planning for them to be in the Olympics.
Marketing.
Yes, and marketing for 10 years, but they're working very hard, and they're very talented. But we also do free programs. Our summer program is our key program. We have 350 kids, and we do free gymnastics up at the Harlem Police Athletic League for 6 weeks. And then after 6 weeks, we do a big show which we call the gala, and this is when the kids perform. They do what they've shown. They show what they can do in 6 weeks. But then I bring a lot of my Olympic friends and friends from Anti-Gravity, a great gymnastics dance company, and Broadway. They come together. It's a really wonderful festival of gymnastics. We do programs during the year every Saturday up at the PAL in Harlem, so kids can try gymnastics, and that's a really low base fee program. But the goal of the foundation is to introduce as many young people to the sport of gymnastics and rhythmic gymnastics, tumbling and trampoline, and then those that have talent and want to work hard can move on to the team, especially the girls. I've spent a lot of time, as you know, with the Women's Sports Foundation. I know how important it is for girls to have access to sports and different sports and support. And so what the foundation does is make that happen, and hopefully the kids can get a great experience in gymnastics, whether they want to be an Olympian or not. They just want the experience, and if they want to train hard, we will do that too.
Now, of course, you focus on training hard. How about having some talent?
Oh, well, you have to have talent, too. I mean, the thing is, it's twofold. You can come in the gym, and the thing about gymnastics is it's very disciplined, and I find this in the summer program. We have about 150 of our kids come from Department of Homeless Services, and to give them an opportunity to try something so disciplined. You know, kids love sport, and they love to play, but they like discipline, too. You have to stand in line gymnastics. You have to follow the rules. You have to listen to your coaches, and surprisingly, that's the crust of the gymnastics, which they love. But we do pick, our team kids are selected. They come, they try out. It's a really dedication for both the gymnasts and the parents. They have to, you know, practice 3 times a week, more than 3 times a week. And we choose them if they have flexibility. The sport of rhythmic gymnastics, you have to have great coordination, good speed, good flexibility, and you have to want to work really hard. And then
well, suppose someone's watching this and so excited by your enthusiasm and wants to get their son or daughter into this. How do they get into it?
Well, they can do 2 things. They can visit our website, www.wendyontheweb.org, and that has all the information about our programs, and we have registration forms you can download and fax into us, or you can call us at 212-375-2471, and you can sign up for the program. You can either sign up for the summer gymnastics program, which is free to boys and girls. We start at ages 3 and go up to 18. years old. Our 3-year-olds, they're very, very cute. We have a really preschool gymnastics. They're on Saturday mornings. But you can sign up for that program, or during the school year, we have our Saturday program. And we do a lot of partnerships. We have a program at the Kennedy Community Center, and our team practices there during the year, and also we have classes. So we do a lot of community classes where we can at different centers around the city.
The Kennedy Center on 135th Street?
Yes, on 135th Street. They've been a great partner. It's a challenge, I must say this, for the team to practice and get better. We are looking for our own space. The PAL has been a great partner, but gymnastics just needs a lot of training to be at Olympic level, or that you have to train 5-6 days a week. So we're looking right now at a wonderful space. It has good 40-foot ceilings, 10,000 square feet. When you find that, call
there are
me.
a lot of vacant buildings around that I guess could be transmuted into a training center.
I think it would be great. We're looking, we'd love to stay in Harlem, and I think it'd be great for New York City to have a gymnastics training center. I have wonderful coaches that are part of the staff. All of them are well trained, many of them from Eastern Europe. My head coach, Karina Rudneva, is from Russia, and they like working with the program. They want to work with talented kids also, and so I think as we come together and the program grows, the ultimate goal is to have our own gym and to get more kids doing gymnastics.
Well, you focused on the physical and the discipline, etc. What about academic? Do you tie academic tutoring, training in with the program, or do you partner with other programs to do that?
We do a lot of partnerships. We do a lot of partnerships, of course, for health. The Women's Sports Medicine Center is one of our health partners with our team. And also as academics are concerned, just so you know, gymnasts tend to do very well in school. Part of that is the discipline carrying over, and there's no about that. You know, Dominique Dawes is a straight-A student, Shannon Miller, you know, people that tend to be so focused and work very hard and have to train their time tend to do very well in school. And so our athletes, we know we have to check their report cards and make sure that, especially the team athletes, if they're lacking in school, then we partner with other programs to help them get tutoring to help them with their different subjects. Fortunately, most of the athletes do quite well, but you have to do well in school, and you can do both. The two really help each other out.
Well, it certainly is a challenge, I know, time-wise, to manage school and gymnastics and other activities. I guess they don't do much else other than gymnastics.
Well, you know, the thing is, especially for our team program, we try and really make it more comprehensive. We have a partnership with the Dance Theater of Harlem in the summertime. Our team kids, they train for 4 hours, 5 days a week, and then they go over to Dance Theater of Harlem for ballet classes, and so that's kind of a full day. But also our team last year, we sent them over to Europe. We had an exchange program with a team from Southampton, England, and so they came over to Harlem for 2 weeks, and our kids went over there right at the end of August. It was really interesting that they were there right before September 11th, and they really kind of became ambassadors for their teammates, their new friends over in England. But we try and expose them to different things, give them great opportunities to be well-rounded individuals. Rhythmic's a lot of fun, it's a lot of hard work, but you don't have to be singular focused. It can really contribute a lot to your life.
Well, you do all this traveling and with these teams. Where does the money come from?
Oh, we write lots of grants wherever it can. If you want to donate, you can also do that too. Well, actually, as I mentioned, Department of Youth and Community Development from the city is one of our major funders. We do a lot of different partnerships and grants from private organizations. If I name them off, different organizations in New York also give us contributions. Corporate contributions, as I mentioned, the United States Olympic Committee was a big partner for about 4 years. And we work very, very hard to get the word out there. Tiger Woods Foundation, actually, you know, other foundations, we kind of help each other to really make it go forward. Columbia University actually is one of our sponsors for the team, and the Patrina Foundation. And so we, for different levels of what we do, we have one other program. We have the Harlem Girls Sports Day that we just had in June. And what we do for that is we introduce young girls to different sports. AOL came in, and ABC Inc. was one of our partners, and we had the luge. The people from the Lake Placid brought the luge down to the parking lot and had kids sliding down the luge. We had boxing. We had last year we had Jackie Frazier, and this year we had Kathy Collins. They do wrestling, and they just get exposed. I love gymnastics, but I also want kids to try different sports that they may not try. So once a year we do this in Harlem, and we have about 300 girls that get to try to be a boxer or fencing or rhythmic gymnastics, and we have corporate sponsorship for that.
Well, women's participating in sport has increased tremendously since Title IX in 1972. What impact do you think that's had on the balance of expenditures in sports? Basically, there was a story in the paper about how most of the money is spent on football and basketball, and the so-called minor sports like golf and tennis are cut out so that women can have their sports and soccer and gymnastics, etc. How do you rationalize that? How do you work that out?
Well, that's quite the story, and I spend a lot of time. The Women's Sports Foundation does a lot of work really educating the public about this. And we have to say, you know, Title IX that's been here for, you know, 30 years at this point almost, is that it really gives equal opportunity, and it has by tenfold increased the opportunities for girls in sports. It's really grown so much since Title IX started. But when you talk about the expenditures of dollars, that hasn't really caught up to the activity of women. Men still get about $133 million more, male college athletes, than female college athletes do. And there is a discrepancy where, unfortunately, the major sports, as they call them, the football and basketball, take a lot of that funding. And people have to understand, because then people always say they bring in more money than they you know, they contribute, and that's not really true. They spend a lot of money. They are often, for Division I, running a deficit. But the key is, and I think people have to focus on this, and it's an issue now because men's gymnastics is having a hard time in the collegiate program. And it's not about taking opportunities from men. It's really about spreading the opportunities across the board so that female athletes have opportunities and male athletes. And when it comes to who gets those athletes, unfortunately, it's in the hands of the athletic directors. So don't blame Title IX and don't blame female athletes, but it's how you disperse those funds that's really key.
In no way was I even suggesting that Title IX should be blamed. I was reporting the public postures on this. The key seems to be football. So when you have 95 scholarships for a football team, 85, you spend most of the money. And that gets into the American values of liking the people fighting against each other on the football field. So we've got to change some societal values.
Yeah, I really think so. And you have to look, when you talk about sports and Olympic sports, it's really affecting the Olympic sports because a lot of the swimmers come through the collegiate program, gymnasts, wrestlers, and that's really had a big impact. And so, you know, football has its place, but you're right, you have to balance it off so that all the athletes get an opportunity. And you have to be a little bit more fair to have those good athletes, especially those student athletes that do have the graduation rates, which are a lot of the other sports, and give them the opportunities also.
Well, you certainly are an enthusiastic advocate. You really believe in what you're doing, and you sell it very, very well.
Oh, thank you.
What do you see in the future?
In the future for different things? Well, of course, there's the Olympic bid as we go towards November 3rd. It's really interesting because I really like the opportunity to tie both youth sports, because when we talk about the legacy, and the Olympics is a great event, but the whole idea is to have young people have more opportunities. You know, New York Athletic Club, I think, has more Olympians in almost most countries that they've produced from New York, but we're not producing enough Olympians anymore, and youth needs to have places to play. They need places to do gymnastics and rowing or whatever they want to do, and this is what the Olympics can bring. So when I look in the future, I look at a lot of New York young people being able, we have such a talent pool. I deal with most of the national governing bodies. There's so many youth here from different cultures that like different sports, and we can get them to do sports with the Olympics.
And with Wendy Hilliard out there leading the charge, it's certainly going to happen.
Thank you.
Thanks to Wendy Hilliard for being with us on today's African American Legends. She certainly is a legend herself, and when we get NYC 2012, she'll be even more of a legend.